I didn't get involved with the Ocean Ranger in the initial setup of the commission. That was a better part of a year later. The commission had been set up and focused its early attention on an investigation into the loss, a marine casualty inquiry. But the commission had two mandates, and its second mandate was to seek opportunities to improve offshore safety. And they were looking for somebody to direct the studies. Some of the people involved with the commission are people that I had worked with at Memorial University when I was there. Anyhow, through the jigs and reels, I ended up being selected for that position. The incident occurred St. Valentine's Day, February the 15th, that night in 1982. The report of the commission was issued in June of '85. It took approximately a year. It was 1983 that I was retained, and the Part 2 study program was initiated. And it took us through till the end of 1984, and that period in 1985 was basically involved with the physical production of the report and the formalities of its submission to government. And I can still remember when I laid my initial study plan out with the chair of the commission, he was kind of taken aback by it, in part because we proposed a network of advisory committees with extensive involvement by people in the industry. And he sort of said, well, they're the guys we're inquiring into. I said, no, they're the folks who know most about that industry. And we all share a common objective, which is to make it as safe as we can. And so we did. We went ahead and we got engagement and involvement by major actors in the industry, not just the oil companies, but the exploration companies, the rig owners, and so on. And we had quite a large network of those people. We also engaged people involved with search and rescue, emergency response, contingency planning, emergency medicine. We spread a very broad net because our underlying assumption was that the next catastrophe wouldn't be the loss of a twin-hulled, column-stabilized semi-submersible in a winter storm. The industry itself would examine that in great detail and would understand the causes of that. The next catastrophe would likely be something else. So we broadly looked at helicopter support and transportation vessels. We looked at emergency medicine. We looked at diving. We looked at all of the activities that go on that are associated with offshore exploration, and sought not just specifics about how to improve safety, but organizational attitudes and management networks that would help change attitudes towards it. One of the things we looked at a fair bit was a regulatory mechanism. We looked at different jurisdictions. We looked at the United States, Britain, Norway, and there are different approaches you can take. As a government, you can say the industry is responsible, they'll take care of these things, and we'll just play a monitoring role, or you can be very prescriptive about it and tell the industry exactly what to do. The reality lies somewhere in the middle of that. We recommended a model that I believe was subsequently followed. One of the things that came around at the same time was the establishment of actually a federal provincial authority called the Canada, Newfoundland, and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board. And it was more or less set up based on the regulatory model that we had proposed. There were specifics. The search and rescue. You're talking about several hundred kilometers offshore, very hostile environment. The ability of search and rescue resources, both vessels and aircraft, can be very much strained because they have to serve, in the case of salt water, they got to serve everybody. So the industry was encouraged to develop its own capacity, and it very much did so. And it employed helicopters with SARTEC, search and rescue technicians, with the equipment for getting people out of the water, getting them in the water, and so on. And that's proven to be effective. The idea of keeping a careful monitoring system on vessel and aircraft activity was another one that I think came from that. We had a long stretch of time when there wasn't another major catastrophe, but there was one a few years ago, and this time it was a helicopter that went down. And all but one of the people in that helicopter were pretty much killed on impact. But the survivor was, well, there's 2 people found and saved. One died shortly after, but another one did live. And you know, that's a very low survival percentage. But to the extent that you know, the response was there, you know, saving one life is important.
Right.
So there were some specifics. The report of the Ocean Ranger was used as sort of the safety manual for the Offshore Petroleum Board for a long time during its operation, and I guess it's kind of a shocker to realize that it's over 30 years ago that report was written, and a lot has changed in the interim. And I know in the environment, health, and safety field, I see those changes, and they've generally been quite positive.